Welcome back to Cold Blood Files, where true crime stories are told like they should be, raw, emotional, and unforgettable. Now, imagine this. You wake up in a luxurious Florida mansion. The morning sun is shining, everything feels peaceful. You, your mother, and your younger brother step into the family's high-end SUV to go check out a new property investment. The car doors shut. Then suddenly, an explosion tears through the air. Screams. Blood. Shattered glass. 2 people die. 1 barely survives. And the only person left completely unharmed is standing just a few feet away, calmly watching. The most chilling part. That survivor was the son of one of the victims. This was no accident. It was a cold-blooded murder plot, planned meticulously, executed just steps away from home, with a bomb. All for one reason: money. Steven Wayne Benson, the man behind the blast, wasn't a street thug. He wasn't a drug addict. He was born into wealth, raised in luxury, educated, and trusted. But when greed takes over blood, there's no limit to what a person might do. He planted a bomb inside his own mother's car, and killed her, along with his adopted brother, just to secure a massive inheritance. In today's video, we'll uncover one of the most shocking family crimes in 1980s America. What drove Steven to murder the people closest to him? How did he plan and execute such a devastating attack? And what kind of justice, if any, did he face? Get ready. Because what you're about to hear might just shatter your belief in the word family. Part 1: Tragedy in a Billionaire Family, the explosion that shook Naples. Florida, July 1985. The sun was rising calmly over Naples, one of Florida's most luxurious and peaceful towns. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, neatly trimmed lawns sparkled with dew, and behind tall white fences stood mansions that whispered wealth, power, and legacy. But on the morning of July 9th, the dream that this neighborhood embodied was blown apart, quite literally. 7:25 a.m. A brown Chevrolet Suburban sat in the driveway of 741 Forest Lakes Boulevard. Inside were 2 people: Margaret Benson, 63 years old, matriarch of the Benson family, composed, elegant, yet known for her firm grip over her children. And next to her sat Scott Benson, 21, athletic, young, and adopted, but widely regarded as her golden child. Outside the car stood Steven Wayne Benson, the eldest son. He held a cup of coffee in one hand and watched quietly, not his mother, not his brother, but the rear end of the vehicle, where he had secretly hidden something deadly just a few hours earlier. 7:26 a.m. Lynn Kendall, Steven's half-sister, emerged from the house in heels that clicked sharply against the driveway. She climbed into the back seat. The doors shut. Seconds later. Boom! An earth-shaking explosion ripped through the morning stillness. Flames engulfed the SUV. Shards of glass burst in every direction. Twisted metal flew across the yard. Neighbors rushed outside in horror. "Oh my God! Is anyone still alive in there? Call 911. Hurry! That was a bomb." Witnesses later said they saw Steven just standing there, near the garage, unscathed, not screaming, not helping. Just watching. As if he'd been waiting for that moment. Through the smoke and flames, Lynn, severely burned, somehow managed to crawl out of the wreckage. She screamed, "Steven! Call someone. Mom's dead." But Steven didn't move. His face was calm. Silent. And in that eerie stillness, no one yet realized, the killer was already standing among them. And he had gotten almost everything he wanted. Within 10 minutes, fire trucks and police swarmed the area. Officers were stunned. A car bomb. In the driveway of one of Naples' wealthiest families. That wasn't just unusual, it was unthinkable. When questioned, Steven played the innocent son. "I don't know what happened. I just waved them off and then heard a loud bang. I thought maybe a tire blew out or something." But Lieutenant Harmon, the officer in charge that morning, never took his eyes off Steven. "A blown tire doesn't turn a car into a fireball," he thought grimly. Inside the SUV, Margaret's body was burned beyond recognition. Scott had been thrown from the vehicle, lying lifeless several yards away. And Carol, though badly injured, was still conscious enough to speak. "I smelled something weird when I opened the door. And then it all exploded." Steven didn't get in the car. At first, local newspapers hesitated to use the word bombing. But by day 2, the truth couldn't be avoided. Forensic teams found pipe bomb fragments, electrical wires, and a 9-volt battery trigger system under the rear of the car. There was no mistake, this was a calculated murder. And only one question remained. Who had the motive, the opportunity, and the coldness to pull it off? Part 2, The Benson Family, Glitz, Power, and Cracks No One Saw Coming. To outsiders, the Benson family was the picture of American success, wealthy, respected, and seemingly untouchable. Their fortune didn't come from luck or a fleeting business deal, it was built steadily through generations in the tobacco industry. At the head of it all was Margaret Benson, a steel-willed woman who took over Lancaster Leaf Tobacco after her husband's death and ran it with iron discipline. Elegant in appearance but unwavering in control, Margaret was both the matriarch and the engine of the Benson legacy. But once you stepped beyond the manicured lawns and towering gates, into the rooms where the cameras never reached, the illusion of harmony began to crumble. Steven Wayne Benson, born in 1951, was the eldest son. Naturally, one would expect him to be the rightful heir to the family empire. But as the years passed, Steven proved again and again that he was completely unfit for the role. He was aimless, impulsive, and constantly involved in shady investments, from real estate ventures to get-rich-quick schemes and failed startups. Time and again, Margaret had to bail him out financially, quietly writing checks to cover his debts and mistakes. Family members recalled how Steven despised being under his mother's financial thumb. "I'm your son, your own flesh and blood. Why do you need to monitor every dollar I spend?" Steven once shouted at Margaret. "Because I won't let you destroy what your father worked so hard to build," she replied firmly. That wasn't a one-time argument. It happened often, until eventually frustration hardened into hatred. Scott Benson was not Margaret's biological son, but her nephew, whom she adopted as an infant. And yet, to most people, Scott seemed like the true heir, well-mannered, disciplined, and deeply trusted by Margaret. She paid for his education, involved him in business meetings, and even began preparing him for future leadership. Steven didn't hide his resentment. The real son gets treated like a criminal, and that kid gets handed everything, Steven once told a close friend. At this rate, she's going to give it all to him. That bitter sentence, perhaps tossed off in frustration, would soon turn into a deadly prophecy. Carol Lynn Kendall was Margaret's daughter from a previous marriage. Older than Steven, she had her own life, a failed marriage, independence, and a habit of staying out of the family's internal power games. Still, Carol sensed something was off about Steven. He had this look in his eyes, like he didn't feel anything for anyone. Always calculating. Like the world owed him something. At family dinners, Steven often sat in silence, staring blankly as others spoke, only to break the tension with cold, offhand remarks that made people uncomfortable. By mid-1985, Margaret began reviewing her will. She made it clear she wanted Scott to inherit the majority of the estate and take over the family business. Steven, in contrast, would receive a fixed allowance, just enough to live comfortably, but with no control over the family fortune. Steven knew. And in that twisted, angry mind of his, a dark calculation began to take shape. If Margaret and Scott both died, the inheritance would default to him. A single domino ticked, and the entire chain reaction was set into motion. Part 3, The Cold-Blooded Murder Plot, a bomb planted in his own mother's car. The deaths of Margaret and Scott Benson on the morning of July 9, 1985, weren't the result of a burst of rage or an impulsive act. No, it was the horrifying climax of a plan that had been carefully and coldly calculated, step by step. Every part of the attack, the device, the timing, the victims, had been chosen with chilling precision. In the final weeks of June 1985, Steven began acting strangely. He'd leave the house at odd hours, often alone and without telling anyone where he was going. One time, a housekeeper noticed him carrying a heavy duffel bag into the garage, and when asked, he casually replied, "Just tools for some plumbing work." Meanwhile, Margaret and Scott remained unaware and unbothered. They were busy planning an upcoming trip to view a new property Margaret was interested in developing. On July 9th, she, Scott, and her daughter Carol would take the family's Chevrolet Suburban and go see the land. To Steven, this moment was perfect. Even though the internet wasn't common in 1985, bomb-making manuals could still be found in public libraries and technical bookstores. Steven wasn't a genius, but he was clever enough to kill. According to forensic experts, the bomb used in the attack was a pipe bomb, a relatively simple yet highly destructive device made from a metal pipe about 12 to 15 inches long, gunpowder mixed with other ignition chemicals, a battery-powered detonator, a wire running to a trigger hidden near the rear seat. The idea was that when someone sat down or shut the car door, it would trigger the circuit and ignite the bomb. This wasn't a scare tactic, one bomb specialist later said. It was designed to kill. Period. One of the most disturbing parts of this case is that Steven planted the bomb in his mother's own car, inside their family garage, just steps from where they all slept. On the night of July 8th, while everyone was asleep, Steven sneaked into the garage, opened the back of the Suburban, and installed the device under the cargo area, wiring it for detonation. He used no gloves, no protective gear, no attempt to hide fingerprints. That's how confident, or perhaps arrogant, he was. The next morning, he joined the family for breakfast as if it were any other day. Margaret dressed in her usual business casual attire. Scott wore a pale polo shirt. Carol had done her makeup. None of them knew they were stepping into a rolling coffin, built by the person who had kissed them good morning. Steven made sure he didn't get into the car with them. Instead, he walked them to the vehicle, waved goodbye, and said, "Drive safe, Mom." Margaret smiled at her son, a final look of love, unaware she was seconds from death. Carol, seated in the back, was the last one to shut the door. That simple click of a car door finishing its swing was all it took. Boom. Witnesses later said Steven did not panic. He simply took a few steps back and stared at the burning vehicle. There was no screaming. No running toward the wreck. No attempt to help. Carol managed to crawl out of the wreckage, her skin burned, her clothes torn, and blood dripping from her arms. She reached toward Steven, barely able to speak. "Help, help me." He turned away. Just 1 hour after the explosion, Steven was already at the police station for questioning. Officers expected a man in shock, but what they found was eerily calm. One detective asked, "Did it cross your mind that if your mother and brother died, you'd inherit everything?" Steven paused, then answered coldly, "I haven't thought about that. But if that's what the law says, then I guess there's nothing I can do, right?" No anger. No sadness. No emotion. Just a man who watched his own family die, and saw an opportunity. Part 4, The Web of Lies unravels, when the killer can't hide forever. After the horrific explosion on the morning of July 9, 1985, which killed Margaret Benson instantly and left Scott Benson fatally injured, police in Naples, Florida, launched a full-scale investigation. At first, Steven appeared to be a grieving son and a cooperative witness. But within days, investigators began noticing a series of red flags that quickly made him their prime suspect. From the very beginning, detectives determined this was not a car malfunction. The explosion originated from the back of the vehicle, far from the engine or electrical systems. Debris patterns indicated that the blast came from a planted device, not from an internal failure. Most crucially, forensic experts found curved metal fragments laced with explosive chemicals, telltale signs of a homemade pipe bomb. The conclusion was clear: someone deliberately placed a bomb in the car. This was murder. Steven was initially treated as a witness, but multiple oddities soon came to light. Why didn't he get in the car that morning, as planned? Why didn't he show panic or grief after the explosion? And why was he the only one left unharmed? One officer noted, "Someone who just lost their mother and brother, who saw that kind of horror, and stands there frozen. That's not normal." Even more damning, a neighbor testified to hearing metal clanking from the garage the night before the explosion, matching the time Steven claimed to be asleep early. After gathering enough cause, police obtained a search warrant for Steven's room, garage, and private storage spaces. What they uncovered turned speculation into certainty. A technical notebook containing bomb-making instructions, complete with Steven's fingerprints. Scrap pipe and wire fragments identical to what was found at the blast site. A hardware store receipt for batteries, fireworks powder, and steel tubing, purchased under Steven's name. A rough sketch of a pipe bomb schematic found tucked inside his desk drawer. Even more incriminating, a store employee recalled Steven coming in for the materials, saying he was making fireworks for a party, even though there were no holidays around that time. After weeks in the hospital, Carol finally regained enough strength to speak. Her account was devastating. "I had just buckled in, and was about to say something, when I heard a soft click, and then, just blinding light and a deafening boom. She remembered Steven not panicking, not running to help, and even walking away as she called out. When asked, "Do you think someone in your family could have done this?" Carol paused for a long time, tears forming in her eyes, then whispered, "I don't want to believe it, but only one person didn't get in the car that morning. Only him." Digging into the family finances, police uncovered that Steven was drowning in debt, under pressure from banks, and failing in his business ventures. He had repeatedly asked his mother for large sums of money to reinvest, but was refused. With Margaret and Scott dead, Steven would be the primary heir, inheriting over $10 million in assets. With Carol critically injured, he'd essentially control everything. One investigator summed it up. He didn't kill out of hatred. He killed out of greed. And he thought no one would catch him. Just 5 weeks after the explosion, on August 22, 1985, police arrested Steven Wayne Benson and charged him with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. When handcuffed, Steven showed no resistance, no shock, only muttered, "I guess everything eventually catches up." Part 5, the trial that shook America, when cold blood meets the courtroom. Naples, Florida. July 1986. Nearly a year after the deadly explosion that killed 2 members of the Benson family, Steven Wayne Benson was finally brought to trial at Collier County Courthouse. The case had now evolved from a family tragedy to a national scandal, one that exposed the dark underbelly of wealth, greed, and betrayal in high society. From day one, the courtroom was packed. Journalists from across the country filled the benches, and TV cameras waited outside, hungry for every twist. Steven entered the court wearing a formal suit, face calm and unreadable, a sharp contrast to the charges he faced: 2 counts of first-degree murder, and 1 count of attempted murder. The 12 jurors selected were under strict isolation, told to avoid all media. They weren't just judging a man. They were judging the soul of a once-respected family. The prosecution began with chilling calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are not presenting just a tragedy. We are revealing a betrayal, by a man his family trusted most." Then came the mountain of evidence. Crime scene photos showing the burnt-out SUV, twisted metal, and remains of the bomb. Physical evidence, metal shards, bomb wiring, Steven's notebook with explosive instructions, receipts for materials, all tied to him. Eyewitness testimony from store employees who remembered Steven buying fireworks powder and steel tubing. Financial documents proving Steven was drowning in debt, but stood to inherit millions after his mother and brother's deaths. And most heartbreakingly, Carol Benson's testimony, the sole survivor of the blast. She appeared in court, walking with a cane, voice trembling yet resolute. "I never imagined I'd be standing in court, saying my own brother is the man who murdered our mother and brother." Silence fell over the courtroom. Some wept. Steven sat still, staring straight ahead. Not a single tear. Steven's defense team made desperate arguments. That the explosion could have been an accident, or even the work of a third party. That the materials found could have been planted. That Steven was a family man with no criminal record. But the jury wasn't buying it. The evidence was too consistent, too damning, and too well documented. Many hoped Steven would eventually confess, maybe to show remorse. Maybe to give closure. But he never did. Throughout the 4-week trial, Steven never admitted guilt, never apologized, and never cried. In his final statement before sentencing, all he said was, "I have nothing to say." On July 28, 1986, after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Guilty of attempted murder. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment without parole. In the courtroom, Carol Benson quietly bowed her head. Her brother, now a convicted killer. Her mother and adopted brother, lost forever. The Benson family, once a symbol of success, power, and wealth, was now remembered for one of the most chilling family murders in Florida's history. Part 6, Behind Bars, The Final Price of Betrayal. After the headlines faded and the courtroom lights dimmed, Steven Wayne Benson began his true sentence, not just a life in prison, but a life completely stripped of identity, privilege, and human connection. Gone were the mansions, the high-end cars, the family legacy. What remained was a cold cell, a rusted bed frame, and a lifetime of silence, echoing with the memory of 2 lives he stole. Steven was locked away in Taylor Correctional Institution, one of Florida's high-security prisons. From the start, he wasn't treated like a celebrity inmate, but like a pariah. Among other prisoners, he was infamous, the guy who blew up his own mother for money. He was frequently kept in isolation, not for protection, but because no one wanted to be near him. No visitors. No letters. No friends. Just time, and guilt. A prison guard later told reporters. He walked like a ghost. Never made eye contact. Like he knew he didn't belong anywhere anymore. Over the years, prison reports described Steven's mental state as deeply depressed. He refused therapy. Spoke to no one. Didn't even join the prison work detail. In the eyes of many, he was already dead, just still breathing. Then, nearly 30 years after the murders, karma finally caught up. On July 3, 2015, Steven was brutally attacked inside his prison dorm. Another inmate beat him with a wooden plank after an argument, but many believe the act was fueled by long-standing hatred towards Steven's crimes. He was rushed to the prison infirmary, but it was too late. At age 62, Steven Wayne Benson was declared dead. There was no funeral. No one claimed his body. Just a name crossed off a list, and a quiet end to one of Florida's most infamous killers. A man who murdered for money, and died alone, without a single tear shed. As for Carol Benson, the only survivor of the explosion, her life was forever marked. She recovered physically, but emotionally, she was never the same. She lost her mother. She lost her brother. And the killer was her own flesh and blood. Carol never married, never had children, and gradually disappeared from public life. In a rare letter to a friend, she once wrote, "I didn't just lose my family. I lost myself." This wasn't just a murder case. It was a warning about what happens when greed eats away at the soul. Steven Benson's crime shattered not just lives, but the illusion that family always protects. 1 bomb. 2 deaths. And a legacy forever remembered, not for love, but for betrayal. Thank you for watching. If you stayed with us until the end, thank you. Stories like this aren't easy to hear. But they remind us that behind every headline is a human tragedy, and sometimes, a lesson. If this story gripped you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime deep dives that uncover the darkest corners of the human mind. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and never underestimate how far some will go for money.